Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first, starting with the fire danger, we've got some spotty areas of high stuff here up north of the Alaska Range, southern Yukon, and over toward Tok and Northway. Also some spotty areas here from the Matanuska Valley over toward Point McKenzie and into portions of Anchorage. And then the more extensive area here from the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta up into the Kobuk Valley, of course the Seward Peninsula, some areas of extreme now in that area, also a little bit back to the east there, and extending up into the Noatak Valley. On satellite imagery yesterday, a lot of clouds here in the Gulf of Alaska, kind of sweeping up into the southeast interior, a trough up here dropping down from the north, and yet another band coming on shore to the northwest and west, or the central coast up there. Out to the west, there was a front pushing across the eastern areas there that today, actually a low pressure area now tracking across the central Aleutians. Front really kind of going to pieces here, bringing some rain into the eastern Aleutian areas. Then a stronger trough right through here, bringing some precipitation from the eastern Norton Sound area, kind of some showers, a little more extensive up across the Tanana Valley there onto the northeast. Pretty strong low pressure area there tracking eastward, north of the eastern Arctic coast. Kicked the winds up there pretty good today, and this system lifting northward, just about due north, bringing rainfall from roughly Port Alexander northward across Sitka with the heaviest amounts up over the northern areas, and just a lot of mid and high level clouds down to the south with no precipitation. They saw temperatures well into the 60s in that area. Some breaks here off the coast. Also a pretty sunny day up over the northwest interior behind this trough here. Almost a cold front, but I drew it in as a trough. The clouds banked up along the Brooks Range there, so the downsloping flow cleared it out pretty well there in the northwest down to the Seward Peninsula areas. Low clouds and fog here from the Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, hit the north shore of St. Lawrence Island this afternoon. Then some more breaks down to the south. Here's that very weak trough bringing some moisture into the Dutch Harbor, Unalaska area today and extending back toward the central Aleutians. Another trough brought about 1/10 of an inch of rain to Kodiak today in the form of showers, and that extended up into northeastern Bristol Bay. And rainfall amounts, Chattanooga there, west-northwest of Fairbanks, picked up about 4/10 of an inch of precipitation in the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Otherwise, 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch common in some areas, while other areas had less than that. Some scattered or really isolated thunderstorms here associated with that trough. A little more extensive up over the eastern interior this afternoon. And the rainfall, again, pushing northward there into the eastern coastal areas. About 4/10 of an inch falling at Gustavus, while Hoonah had about 1/4 of an inch today, and then nothing down over the southern areas. And we'll look at the forecast for tonight. That front pushes on through, so look for some rain to pass over the southern southeast coast while it scatters out the showers back to the north, and showery, mostly cloudy skies here. Scattered showers along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, threat of an isolated thunderstorm maybe over the Wrangell Mountains up to the Alaska Range area, and this trough gradually moving eastward and southward, and it looks like some moisture will spill into the Susitna Valley probably later on this evening, and that should spill on down into the northern Cook Inlet area probably sometime after midnight, definitely by morning. Rain in the forecast there. Drying out, westerly flow, maybe some clearing there for Kodiak Island, and staying fair out here in the west. Dry and breezy from the Noatak Valley areas all the way down to the Yukon Delta, but wind's not all that strong. High pressure settling in over the western Arctic coast will nudge this area of moisture off to the east a little bit, and anything that falls up there will be fairly light. Low clouds and fog in areas of the Bering Sea, and then some isolated showers, mostly cloudy skies, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, a break, and then there's the next system that'll be spreading some gales into the western Aleutians. Actually, I think it's for tomorrow night there. As this system comes northward, that rain will push off mostly to the northeast with that first front. Otherwise, high pressure continues to dominate the Bering Sea. So light winds, areas of low clouds and fog, as well as some clearing there. Still a risk of a few light showers, mostly cloudy skies, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Sunshine tomorrow, Togiak, Kuskokwim Bay, northward there, up across Kotzebue Sound, and probably pretty good for Kivalina and also maybe up to Kelly, but the clouds again along and north of the Brooks Range all the way across. Could be a few breaks up there. Light winds with high pressure along the eastern Arctic coast. A little bit of moisture approaches the western areas there, but whatever does make landfall will be very insignificant. And then still southwest flow aloft and at the surface here, coming around that high down to the southeast. So it's going to keep impulses of moisture, mostly in the form of showers, coming in mainly to the central and northern southeast coast. And then that area of rain down into south central Alaska. Showers, rain, some of them could be on the heavier side, and back up across the Copper River Basin, northward across the 40-mile country, all the way up to Eagle with some thunderstorm activity along the trough. And but still probably a mostly partly sunny day there for Kodiak Island. Dry conditions, and again just isolated showers back to the west. High pressure again holding over the eastern Arctic coast there for fairly light winds. And then this next system on Tuesday moves up to about that position just south of Amchitka Island. So look for some pretty good winds and another shot of rain pushing into that area, approaching the eastern Aleutians late in the day. Still a very light wind field here under essentially high pressure that's slowly weakening. The main center now up over the Russian Far East. So again, no change in the pattern there. Areas of low clouds and fog tending to gradually increase over time. Still mostly sunny here, Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta, up the Yukon Valley, into the central interior looking pretty good. And drier conditions, bulk of the moisture now will be shifting southward tomorrow night, or Monday night, tomorrow night and into Tuesday. So some pretty good showers, cloudy skies for Kodiak Island, showers, southern Kenai Peninsula, scattered showers in Prince William Sound, and that same thing along the eastern or Gulf Coast there into the northwestern panhandle, but partly sunny and dry for the most part for the central and southern areas. And just some isolated thunderstorms developing over the mountains, mainly the Alaska Range, risk of some showers here over the Talkeetnas, but definitely a drier, more sunnier day on Tuesday than what we'll see tomorrow. And then on Wednesday, it looks even sunnier and drier and warmer as higher pressure aloft gradually builds in, and that may last through the rest of the week. Up in the interior, not too bad for Tuesday there with a lot of sunshine and a few clouds, maybe some isolated showers, but the heavier precipitation about over. And looking at the temperatures along the southeast coast, I guess the map advancer gave up. Either that or the system froze up. But temperatures across the southeast coast were in the 50s and 60s. I believe Ketchikan had 60. Cooler 50s up to the north. Gustavus was 48, for example. Otherwise into the mid-60s in the Susitna Valley areas, and 60s and 50s through the interior, with the Arctic coast and the clouds and the areas of snow, lower 30s along the coast to mid-30s over the north slope. Umiat, I believe, was 36 this afternoon, and not bad temperature-wise out to the west. And let's see, 40s for the Pribilofts today. It's kind of, I'm looking at the Tuesday map and then calling today's temperatures on it. But going to the segment now. Be right back, hopefully. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and today I'm privileged to introduce Dr. Uccellini, the Director of the United States National Weather Service. Welcome back to Alaska, sir.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Prior to being the leader of the National Weather Service, your work included an extensive look at snowstorms across the northeastern United States. These are the types of storms that can bring some of the country's largest cities to its knees. Tell me a little bit about your fascination with snow.
Well, as far back as I can remember, I've always been interested in weather, growing up as a kid on Long Island, New York, and was particularly fascinated by snowstorms, why they occurred. The distribution of snow was very varied across the entire region. The rain-snow line, all those things fascinated me right from the get-go. And I was interested in knowing how they worked, how the forecast worked, or more often than not, didn't work one way or the other. And that drove me, that interest continued to build and drove me through high school right into college, wanting to be a meteorologist.
Okay, that's a fascinating story, and I think every meteorologist has a weather story like that in some way. Right. Due to Alaska's size and proximity to the North Pole, sometimes it's difficult to detect and analyze the weather patterns over Alaska. What's the National Weather Service doing to improve that weather detection?
Well, observations in this type of environment is a big challenge, whether it's from space or from what we call in situ observations from the ground or within the systems. Clearly, satellites have been playing an increasing role in providing the big picture, not only from a visual sense in what you see is occurring, but also from providing the data for numerical models that then are used to actually predict the weather. Alaska is actually pretty well positioned with respect to polar orbiting satellites, since you get a faster return of those satellites over your particular area. And in fact, the polar satellite system is the backbone for the observations that we use in our models, especially our global models, and they're particularly important for observing weather features that affect Alaska.
Alaskans live and die by the weather every day, and one of the strategic goals of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service is to develop a more weather-ready nation. What does it mean for Alaskans to be weather-ready?
Well, the strategic outcome is based on people being ready, responsive, and therefore resilient to the increasing threats to extreme weather events. Those threats are related to not only the nature of the events, but the fact that we're becoming more vulnerable to them as we have more people, more infrastructure that could be affected by these events. So we have to ensure that the observations we make for situational awareness, the forecasts we make for people to take the proper responses are connected to people's actions, the response to these events, so that they will be more resilient to what's facing them. There are examples with respect to hurricanes. More people living along the coastline takes longer to evacuate. We have to make better forecasts with longer lead times, but we also have to communicate the threat so people will actually take action to avoid those storms. Up here you have, as in other parts of the United States, an increasing threat related to fire. As there are more people living in fire-prone areas, we have to ensure that our forecasts are good, that we don't have false alarms that make people not react to the forecast when in fact they should. But we also have to be able to communicate the threat and make sure that we're working with the partners in the emergency management community so that communities and right down to individuals will actually take the proper responses in the face of these events. So that's the strategic goal. There are a lot of challenges for us in terms of improving forecasts, but also improving our communication skills and linking with the emergency management communities that are actually out there trying to protect lives and mitigate property loss.
So a huge partnership effort going forward.
That's one of the important keys for the success of meeting the strategic goal.
Okay. One of the things you're talking about was understanding the weather information we're getting back from the computers, weather modeling, and you did a lot of work with that in some of your prior positions with the Environmental Prediction Center there, the National Center for Environmental Prediction. What can you tell us about recent improvements in that weather modeling? And you were using the polar orbiters as kind of a source of information that started that process.
Well, you know, first of all, we have to recognize that everything you see, you read and hear about weather, climate, or ocean forecasts are all driven by numerical models. Now, it really has been the revolution in our forecast process in the last part of the 20th century. The success of that numerical enterprise is based on three factors: big computers, global data, not just local data, but you have to have a global data set, and then the models themselves, the science that's behind the models and in running the models in an operational mode. So we're working to improve all three of those components. We upgraded our computers last year. We're going through another upgrade even as I speak. We'll be upgrading from 200 trillion calculations per second to 700 trillion calculations per second by January of 2015. This increase in the computer will allow us to run what we call Earth system models. It's not just the atmosphere, it's the atmosphere, ocean, ice, which is obviously very important up here, and land models that are all coupled together at higher resolution. So you need the big computers, you need the science that allows us to run these models and run them in a parallel mode, and that they're coupled so that the ocean effects could affect the atmosphere and vice versa, as an example. And then the global observations are absolutely critical, and over the last 20, 30 years they've become more dependent upon the satellite systems, and especially the polar orbiting satellites, which help drive the observations needed for those models, whether they be atmospheric observations, land, ice observations. We're deriving more and more of that from satellites now that feed into these models and produce forecasts with extended lead times. Now out, you know, for extreme events especially, we're seeing much improved forecast out in the 4, 5, 6, 7, and even 8-day range, which gets us back to Weather Ready Nation, because if you're going to get ready for a storm event, you want those consistent forecasts approaching that event from day 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, so you can take the actions several days in advance that can help mitigate the property loss and protect your livelihood.
Okay, all part of the mission of protecting life and property. Dr. Uccellini, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and speaking to Alaskans and sharing how the National Weather Service is working for Alaska and the nation. Wish you safe travels around the 49th. Enjoy your time here, sir. And for Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
Welcome back. Well, starting off with the low temperatures for tonight here, 40s in the south, 20s through the Brooks Range, lower 30s for the Arctic coast, and low 40s out here in the west, upper 40s, lower 50s for the southeast coast. Highs for tomorrow, again, pretty nice here in the southwest, upper 50s to mid to upper 60s. Warmest down here looks like toward the Bethel area, and 50s and 60s into the interior, 30s to mid 40s up north, and 50s across the panhandle. And for the flying weather, tomorrow morning, marginal VFR here from the northeast interior, right down across the Tanana Valley into south central Alaska, gradually shifting eastward, extending to Kodiak Island, marginal over the southeast coast with some IFR to the north. And then for tomorrow afternoon, we've got IFR from Yakutat right into western Prince William Sound, passes Canal on into Whittier. Marginal VFR as the main moisture band comes across south central Alaska. Good VFR up to the north, though, just a patch of marginal stuff up over the eastern Arctic coast. Of course, a lot of IFR out over the Bering Sea. Passes lowest conditions on the northern approaches of both Adigan and Anatuvik, with Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal, rainy, marginal, windy, also marginal. Isabel, VFR becoming marginal in the afternoon. That same forecast for Mentasta. And Dehne looks marginal. Portage, IFR, again, lowest conditions on the eastern entrance. For Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. And the freezing levels, again, the cold air with the upper trough up here, 2,000 feet from the Brooks Range. Surface there over the north slope and Arctic coast is for late tonight. And then 4,000 feet, and roughly about 6,000 over southern Alaska. And 8,000 feet just clipping the southern southeast coast, 4,000 feet out over the western and southwest Bering Sea. And for icing, areas of mixed or rime, mostly above 5,000 feet here, covering good portion of south central and the southeast interior, right up into the Tanana Valley to the eastern border, and some leftover stuff over the northern panhandle, and then some clipping the far western Aleutians. Winds aloft, here's that trough coming down, actually forming a cutoff low there over the interior, and that'll be swinging through. Portion will be dropping southward. Higher pressure back to the west again by Tuesday and Wednesday will be shifting eastward into the interior and kind of setting up for several days. And then at 9,000 feet, southwest flow continues here up to the North Gulf Coast, northern panhandle areas. Northeast flow behind that trough, only 15 to 20 knots, light and variable up to the north. And at 3,000 feet, westerlies, 15 to 20, maybe 22 knots in across the southeast coast, turning southwest the Gulf of Alaska. Low pressure over the Susitna Valley. Could see some 25-knot winds in the southern Kenai Peninsula. Northeast 10 to 15 become northwest at the same speed as they come down across the Alaska Peninsula. Then winds out west here picking up. Amchitka 25 to 35 knots out toward Shemya. And for turbulence, mechanical stuff here from Yakutat, northern panhandle into the Yukon, and also from the southern Kenai Peninsula, maybe Kodiak Island. Nothing really significant. Same thing for the southwest coast, just a chance of, and nothing that's going to hurt you at all. And then out over the western Aleutians. And for the sea surface temperature, still warmest, continuing to see some warming here over the Norton Sound area and the southwest coast, as well as the northern Gulf of Alaska, warming up nicely there for Prince William Sound. Cooler, but a warming trend going on for the northern Bering Sea, and the sea ice about gone here south of the strait now, except over this way, and opening up in the Chukchi Basin. A lot of open areas here along the Arctic coast, along with some ice stuck on the east side, also around Barrow. And for the marine forecast, west to southwest at about 20 knots, lighter down south, northwest 15 for Clarence Strait, otherwise south 15. Stevens Passage kicking up to 25 knots for northern Lynn Canal. Then on Tuesday, those drop back a little bit. Southerlies 15 to 20 through here. Northwest 20, Clarence Strait, same thing for the south coast, and then kind of becoming lighter and more variable south to southwest, only at 10 knots there from the north side. And for Monday, Prince William Sound, southerly winds at 15. Also that forecast good for the North Gulf Coast. Southerlies 20, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, 20 to 25 knots out of the south for Cook Inlet, southwest 20, Kodiak Island. And then for Tuesday, northeast of 15 for Shelikof Strait, but south 15 for Kamishak Bay. Light southwest breezes, variable to southwest, 10 knots, 2 to 3 foot seas, Cook Inlet. Same thing for Prince William Sound. Easterlies, 15 knots across the Gulf and the Barren Islands and the east side of Kodiak Island. And for the Bristol Bay, west 20 tomorrow, otherwise west-northwest at 15 for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest of Kodiak Island, westerlies at about 15 knots with 5 to 6 foot seas. And then for Tuesday, west winds 15 knots here for Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, seas running 4 to 6 feet, 3 feet for Bristol Bay, northwest 15 with 5 foot seas from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. And for the eastern Aleutians, west-northwest, pretty light, 10 knots with 3 to 7 foot seas. East-southeasterlies here at about 15 to 20 for the central Aleutians, and then small craft advisories west of Adak out to Shemya. And the outlook for Tuesday, pretty brisk winds now here with that next system pushing up, northeast 30 for the western Aleutians, easterlies and east-southeasterlies, 30 knots. Small craft advisories also almost to Nikolsky, but not quite for Unalaska Island, south to southeast, 15 knots with 3 to 6 foot seas. Southwest coast, northwest, 15 to 20 knots. Same thing for St. Lawrence Island. Lighter northwesterlies for the northern Bering Sea and the Perbelos, light out of the north at 10. And for Tuesday, those swing around to the east or just variable to east. Still 10 knots, seas 3 feet, west at 10 with 3-foot seas south of Nunivak Island, northwest 10 north of the island, and westerlies at about 20 for St. Lawrence Island. For the eastern Arctic coast, northwest 15, 2 to 3 foot seas for tomorrow. Central coast southwest at 15. Then we pick up some 20 knot southerlies here for the west side all the way down to Cape Thompson, and from Wales northward there southwest at 10. Then those turn back northerly here on the west side all the way down across Kotzebue Sound to the Bering Strait. Northwest 25, so we've got small craft advisories, which have become brisk wind advisories for the central coast, and then south to southwest at 20 for the eastern Beaufort Sea. And for tonight, watching this trough and moisture, keeping it wet there in the central interior, Tanana Valley onto the northeast, back down into the northern Kuskokwim Valley. It's going to start pushing into the Susitna Valley this evening, should reach the northern Cook Inlet area sometime after midnight, definitely by morning. This front pushes through, drags some rain, light precipitation across the southern areas, of scattering out the showers back to the west and north. A few showers here for the North Gulf Coast. And this system will push some rain across the far western Aleutians tomorrow. Otherwise, high pressure holding over the Bering Sea, high pressure over the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast. And pretty wet day for south central Alaska tomorrow, shifting into Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin. Showers slide northeastward across mainly the northern panhandle. Dry, I think, for Kodiak Island. And then for Tuesday, more sun, less showers, still isolated thunderstorms over the mountain, and pretty good up in the interior. Light winds, partly to mostly sunny skies. Another trough brings a chance of some moisture into the Arctic coastal areas and North Slope, and here's that stronger system to the west.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Arctic Wire Rope and Supply, an Alaskan company providing lifting and rigging products since 1983. Manufacturing custom wire rope, chains, and nylon slings here in Anchorage. On the web at arcticwirerope.com.